Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 277, cover dated June 1991. This cover features Wolverine versus Gambit by Jim Lee and Scott Williams. So very much the focus on the battle between these two characters, evened out in Gambit's case by the sword and spear he carries. So two of the most popular X-Men from this period. You can imagine the appeal of a cover like this at the time. So let's open this one up to our first page. We have got an anchor image here to begin of the Starjammers in their ship on final approach to Epsilon Seikosha number 9, a planet to which they've tracked down some of the X-Men and Deathbird and Lila Cheney. Now, as was revealed in the previous issue, these are not the true Starjammers, but rather War Skrulls who have taken on their forms and powers. But who turns out to be aboard the ship except Gambit, who attacks the Starjammers and takes out their computer targeting system. So then we get a two-page splash of the Starjammers ship firing wildly and missing Storm, Banshee and Forge. But just to go back one page here for the creative team. So the writer, Chris Claremont, artist, Jim Lee, inker, Scott Williams, colors by Joe Rosas, and letters by Tom Orzechowski. So what happens here is the various X-Men are trying to breach the ship. Storm has access to her weather powers because the ship is low enough in the planet's atmosphere, but an unintended side effect is her winds destroy Forge's sky sled, but he acts skillfully and hooks onto the hull of the ship there. As he says to himself, Errol Flynn, eat your heart out. So then back aboard the Starjammer, Gambit is in full attack mode, taking on Raza and Corsair. And Hepzibah tells the others to go deal with the X-Men outside the ship, that she will take on Gambit alone. And then as she does so, she transforms into her original War Skrull form. So Gambit is quite happy with this and ready to take her on with his Joker card there. So over the page, we have Chod dealing with Forge's incursion into the ship. Forge shoots him point blank in the face, but it has no effect on this particular Starjammer, who threatens then to eat Forge's head. But Banshee arrives just in the nick of time to save Forge, and then he has to fight Raza here. As the fight continues, Storm gets involved. A nice anchor image here of Storm entering the ship, but she's attacked by Corsair, and her battle armor proves tough enough to withstand the shots from his blaster. But he also transforms into a War Skrull, and this is a shock to Storm, even though she has had her suspicions about the behavior of some of these people up to this point. And nice little use of duotone here, indicating the shade cast by the immense figure of the War Skrull. So then the scene switches to an asteroid belt called the Mole, on which there is a fortress, in the middle of which are the techno-organic imprisoned figures of Charles Xavier, Psylocke, Wolverine, Jubilee, Oracle of the Imperial Guard, and the original Starjammers. So Lila Cheney teleports there under the prompting of Professor X, the real Professor X. So she teleports there along with Deathbird, and they're met by the War Skrulls in the form of Gladiator, Psylocke, Professor X, and Lilandra, who is herself. She's not a Skrull. So the War Skrulls have also taken on the forms of the captured Wolverine and Jubilee. So Wolverine attacks Deathbird there with his claws. In the background there, you've got another nice use of duotone. And there's more fighting here in these panels. And what happens is suddenly the Starjammer ship arrives on the scene and crashes into the fortress. And who emerges? First of all, it seems to be one of the companions of the War Skrulls, but in fact it's Gambit and the other X-Men and Lila Cheney. And they are now prepared to take on the War Skrull X-Men. So battle commences. Great anchor image here of Gambit unleashing his full deck of telekinetically charged cards at Gladiator. And then we have Jim Lee resorting to a 9-panel page here to speed up the storytelling. We have various X-Men versus the War Skrulls. Over the page here, we have War Skrull Wolverine taking on Storm, but he is attacked here in this panel by Gambit. And Gambit makes a call back to a scene from Uncanny X-Men 273. Say to you, what I told the real Wolvie last time we tussled. Bang, you dead. But this tough War Skrull Wolverine is not taken out by the spear to the back, and he goes to attack Gambit, but Banshee intervenes, reminding the War Skrull that the X-Men are a team and they take care of their own. So another panel heavy page here, getting through the story, where at this point Professor X has freed himself from the Matrix, the techno-organic Matrix that was in his prison, and he taps the War Skrull version of himself on the shoulder, and over the page here he punches him out while attacking him psychically as well. And that's it. That's the end of the War Skrulls. So the X-Men release their comrades and the Starjammers from the techno-organic prison, and the bodies of the War Skrulls discorporate. So there's no remains, no alive prisoners to be questioned about the whole scheme. So Lilandra determines to go back to Chandalar and root out or hunt down any other War Skrulls that may be in hiding there. And what happens is there's also a discussion about the ongoing conflict between Lilandra and her older sister Deathbird, but Deathbird basically says, "Keep the throne, Lil. I was fast growing to hate it myself. In truth, I can't think of a more fitting revenge." And just before she goes, she kisses Professor X, because it was Professor X who contacted her subconsciously and directed her to bring the X-Men via Lila Cheney to Chandalar and ultimately free him, as is what has happened. In this last panel on the page, Banshee is determined to speak up about what's been going on Mur Isle with his love Moira McTaggart and her changed behaviour. Storm thinks it's time to take a breather, but Banshee insists something's terribly wrong with Moira McTaggart. I know it. So what happens is to speed up the process of explaining things, Storm agrees that Professor X can read her memories, and when he does, he realizes that it's the Shadow King that has been behind everything on Mur Isle and what's been going on with Moira McTaggart. So he determines to head to Earth to help the X-Men take on the Shadow King, because as he says here in this panel, all I can say is that the Shadow King is the kind of creature I founded my school and then the X-Men to combat. He is everything I've stood against my entire life. So Lila teleports the X-Men to Earth, leaving Lilandra behind. And then we have our epilogue, prologue of the upcoming Shadow King storyline. We have Stevie Hunter there in Salem, returning home in the wet and rain, where she's accosted by Colossus, whom is in the control of the Shadow King, and he's going to use Stevie Hunter's access to the X-Mansion to attack and destroy the X-Men. So as the final advertisement states there, next up is the Battle of Mur Isle. But this is the last of Jim Lee and Chris Claremont's collaboration on the Uncanny X-Men. The next time they collaborate is on X-Men Volume 2, Number 1, the best-selling comic, single-issue comic of all time. And as many of you know, but some of you might not, there is a video concerning that on the channel. So I hope that you enjoyed this perusal and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 277. If you did, please like the video, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.